Universal has a long history of making memorable and not so notable films such about monsters, from classic movies such as Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Werewolf, and of course The Mummy. And as far as The Mummy goes, the Boris Karloff original and the 1999 remake are the most memorable to me. Even Lon Chaney Jr.'s Mummy had some nostalgic value. So in keeping with the Brenden Fraiser, Rachel Weiss version of The Mummy, today we will look at another film item from that film. We will explore the ancient Egyptians' view of life, death, and immortality. And we'll do it by examining the Egyptian mummification ritual and how the dead live on, or in the case of Imhotep, his search for the remains of his love, Anak-sun-Amun. Hi, I'm Rob, and this is A Constantly Racing Mind. Now, in The Mummy, Pharaoh Seti's high priest Imhotep and his mistress Anak-sun-Amun are having an affair. When confronted, she and her lover Imhotep kill the pharaoh, and the palace guards arrest the priest. Still, Anak-sun-Amun plunges a knife into her chest, committing suicide. She, as custom demanded, underwent the traditional ritual of mummification. Imhotep escapes and stole her mummy-wrapped body and absconds off to the city of Hamunaptra to perform the ungodly rite of resurrection. Now, however, he was caught mid-rite during the ritual, and Anak-sun-Amun was once again condemned to dust. At the same time, Imhotep was subjected to the Hamdai, buried alive with the horrible scarab beetles. Now, you can check out my video on the scarab beetle and the prop from the movie. I'll leave some links in the description. Now, roughly 2,000 years later, Rick O'Connell, Evelyn, and Jonathan reawaken Imhotep, and the resurrected and reconstituting mummy priest begins his search for his lover's internal body parts and a suitable living replacement to transfer her soul into. Now, the ancient Egyptians used canopic jars to store and preserve their owner's viscera for the afterlife. During the mummification process, they were usually cut out of limestone or made of pottery. First, the ancient Egyptians used these jars from the Old Kingdom until the late period, or Ptolemaic period, when the viscera was just simply wrapped and placed with the body. Now, if you're new here, we cover the film genres of sci-fi, horror, action-adventure, prop culture, and all things geek. So if you want more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and be aware of all my content. Now, the viscera was not held in a single canopic jar, but rather in separate pots for different organs. Early Egyptologists incorrectly associated the word canopic with the Greek legend of Canopus. Now, he was Menelaus' boat captain on the voyage to Troy, who was buried at Canopus in the delta, where he was worshipped in the shape of a pot. However, in some versions, the name comes from Canopus, which is now called Abukir, a site near Alexandria in the western Nile Delta. Now, this is where human-headed jars were worshipped as personifications of the god Osiris. Now, the Old Kingdom canopic jars were seldom inscribed and had simple lids. Inscriptions were more common in the Middle Kingdom, and the lids were often shaped like human heads. Now, each of the four heads portrayed one of Horus's four sons as guardians of the organs by the 19th century, or the 19th dynasty, excuse me. Now, the four canopic jars were used to store specific human organs such as the stomach, intestines, lungs, and liver, all of which were thought to be required in the afterlife. Now, the heart was not held in a jar because the Egyptians considered it to be the seat of the soul, so the Egyptians left that inside the body. Now, before mummifying their pharaohs and their dead, the ancient Egyptians removed the internal soft organs. Now, these organs held a lot of blood, which could cause the body to easily putrefy and decompose. However, in the film, you can clearly see that they have 5 jars instead of 4, and I'm not sure what went into the 5th. Now, these organs were carefully separated from the body and preserved in the sacred canopic jars using natron. Now, that's a natural preservative used by embalmers. Even in undisturbed tombs, several Old Kingdom canopic jars were discovered empty and destroyed. As a result, they seem to have never been used as containers. Instead, it appears that they were used in funeral ceremonies and then dumped afterwards. Then again, during the late 19th and early 20th century, grave robbers and treasure seekers were prone to ransacking these sites, and items deemed non-valuable, like gold, were discarded. Now, the appearance of canopic jars had evolved over time. Now, the oldest were made of stone or wood and date from the 11th or 12th dynasties. Now, the most recent jars are from the New Kingdom era. Jars with simple lids were used in the Old Kingdom, but jars with human heads, supposed to represent the dead, started to appear by the first intermediate period. Now, the head of Anubis, the god of death and embalming, were often modeled after or painted to resemble the leaders on the jars. Now, the jars had lids or stoppers shaped as the head of one of the minor funerary deities known as the four sons of Horus, as I mentioned before. It was the job of these four deities to protect the deceased's internal organs. Now, the ancient Egyptians firmly believed that the deceased required his or her organs to be reborn in the afterlife. For use in the afterlife, they would be bandaged and vital organs placed individually in these canopic jars. Now, the jars were made of several materials such as limestone, in this particular period, of course, calcite, and alabaster. Now, the finishing touch would be the stopper being shaped like human heads, and later as jackal, baboon, and falcon heads. Now, these jars were usually grouped in fours and placed alongside the sarcophagi. Now, they were supposed to guard, or supposedly guarded by the sons of Horus. Now, the baboon-headed Hapi guarded the lungs. The human-headed Seti was the guardian of the liver. Now, jackal-headed Duamutel protected the stomach and upper intestines, and the falcon-headed Senual guarded the lower intestine. Try saying that 5 times fast. Now these came from Toscano designs off of Amazon. Once again, I'll leave a link in the description. Now, as you notice, there are only 3 jars. I was looking at this item more for the size of the jars compared to what else was available for the price. Now, most other jars were relatively smaller, or about half the size, and not at all impressive. Now, these jars are about 2.5 inches or 6.35 centimeters in length, and 2.5 inches again, and 6.3 centimeters in width. Now, the nice thing I liked about this is that they were about 7.5 inches tall, or in height, and 19.05 centimeters. Now, perhaps later I will rethink this prop display, as I do have more mummy items coming. Now, I purchased from Toscano before when I bought my Ark of the Covenant, so their products are pretty good. Now, while these are not movie accurate, I was going for that museum mummy vibe rather than a precise film depiction, mainly, as I just mentioned, due to the availability and cost. The movie version, it was alabaster in color, and obviously there are only 3 that come with a set. Now, the missing jar is the baboon-headed deity. I knew this when I purchased. Now, this will be a great addition for now to my also ever-growing collection from the Mummy films. What would you prefer? A white-colored set of jars, or do these look pretty good to you? So I hope you can support the channel on Patreon or buy me a coffee. So thank you for watching. If you found the video entertaining and informative, hit the thumbs up. If not, slam the thumbs down. So watch this video right over here for more videos about props from the Mummy, or check this one right over here for more Indiana Jones videos. Take care.